Nate, welcome to the Vulnerability is Cool podcast.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm so excited you're here.
Yeah.
And before we get started on anything super important, I have created a new addition to the Vulnerability is Cool podcast. And I need you to start us off with telling us your walk-up song today.
All right. So
And we've got it pulled up.
let me see. Okay. So imagine there's like a stage, right? And like the guy is about to walk out anytime. It's like when you're at a concert and the lights are off and like the fog machines are going and it's
Yes.
like, when is he coming on stage?
This is your moment.
And then you start to hear this. Okay, everyone's like paying attention. Everyone's looking. Is he coming? Is he coming?
Drum roll.
Here he is. Oh, yeah. Hey, everybody. It's me. This is the song.
This is beautiful.
The hype's just building. It's just building. The roof's about to pop
Here
off.
we go.
Nothing's even happened yet. Just, that'll be my walk-up song.
Wow, that is beautiful. Thank you for starting us off with that beauty.
Yeah, you're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Okay, well, I know you from going all the way back. I'm pretty sure it was Come Follow Me at my house, right?
Yeah.
We had this, like, if you're not Mormon, but we had like this church group called Come Follow Me, and you came over and participated in Come Follow Me. And I put your name in my phone as Nate Wardy Guy.
Nate Wardy Guy.
Forever. I'm keeping it.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to start off with just your story, who you are, where you came from, and you're a life coach.
Yes.
And you work at Accepted Life.
Yes.
Yes. And you are an inspiration. I just had you on my Healed Girl School call, and it was incredible. And so I can't even imagine where this is going to go today, because you're just so full of knowledge. I'm so excited. But yes, tell us about you.
Okay, so I was raised in Tooele.
Okay.
Which I never knew there was like anything to feel about that until I grew up. And I was like, oh, I'm from Tooele. And people would be like, Tooele? Oh. And I was like, oh, is there something I don't know about Tooele? Like, I had a great time, you know? Raised in Tooele. And then I feel like it was like my sophomore year of high school. I just started to like struggle, you know? And I was always very like popular and outgoing and did all things very similar to your story, you know, just kind of trying to raise to the top of anything I went to. So, you know, did student government, did sports, things like that. And it was my sophomore year. I just started to struggle. I felt like my brain was like attacking me is the feeling.
Yes, I get that feeling.
Yeah. And those are like the best words I had to describe it. I remember I had a playlist, and the name of the playlist was "It's Raining in My Brain."
Oh.
That's the only way I knew how to describe it.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to a little bit about the limited vocabulary around like emotions. It's like, oh, you mean you're sad? You know,
Literally.
no,
yeah.
it's raining in my brain. Right? And so struggled a bit with that. And it wasn't until I think I was in my early 20s where I was at a doctor's office, and I was like, yeah, I mean, in high school, I probably cried myself to sleep like 70% of the nights. And he was like, sorry, what? And I'm like, that's not happening to everybody. And so I struggled a lot in high school.
But it was like nobody really knew, because you're such a happy, bright guy. Were you kind of that way always?
Yeah. Nobody knew.
Okay.
I even had somebody from my hometown message me like a month ago. And she was like, how can you post so much about depression when you've never been depressed?
You're like, bitch, let me tell you.
I was like, gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, because you find this pose that works, right? And I didn't know that's what I was doing, of course.
Yeah.
And so yeah, super outgoing, made a lot of friends. And I did really enjoy parts of high school. There was just this confusing struggle that I didn't really talk to people about because I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Like there's just no awareness. And trying to think, I had this epiphany my senior year. Like I had a best friend since junior high that I had really tried to be like. And the senior year, I had this epiphany that like we were different and that there were parts of me that were amazing that he didn't have. And he was the one that actually helped me see that.
That's cool.
Cause I'm like, you know, he started to love all these things about me, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to be you, you know? And it was actually when I like let go of that, and I was like, oh, I'll just be me, that I found some relief my last year of high school. Things kind of felt better.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then served my mission, and things were kind of...
Where did you go?
I went to Uruguay.
Oh.
I served in Uruguay.
Do you know you went to Argentina?
No way.
Yeah.
We should have some mate.
Yeah, we should. Dang it.
They're really hyped.
Next episode when you come on again.
Yeah, yes. So yeah, I served in Uruguay. When I came back, and there wasn't any crazy struggles mentally. I do remember towards the end of my mission, I would be in like a room, and I would just be like, I need to get out of here. And I would just like try to make up excuses to go stand up. And I would like go to the bathroom, and I would just want to not go back. And, you know, companions would be like, hey man, like we got to get back to Sunday school. And I'd be like, let's just like walk around for a second. And at the time I didn't realize like I was feeling very anxious.
Yeah.
You know, so like
it's crazy because you hear all these terms throughout your whole life. Like I always heard about anxiety and depression. And I remember always like, I'd think like, you're just claustrophobic. Like it's just in your head. And then when I realized what it actually was, I was like, oh wait, I felt this my whole life,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's not even until you're telling your story that you're like, wait a minute, that is not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
You know? And so I got home, that's when I saw the doctor, and he was like, that's not normal. Maybe you should take some antidepressants or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And so went up to college, and it was like this all over again. How can I climb to the top? Like, how can I connect with the right people and give them exactly what they want and make it to the top so that I'm like Mr. Famous on campus, you know?
And almost like be someone else, do you feel like? Or
I mean, I think I thought that was me.
Yeah.
Because that's
okay.
what I'd always done, you know? And so I was like an ambassador at Utah State, and that was a big ego thing. That
I
felt
also
good.
went to Utah State. This is so funny.
Here we are. I didn't know you went to Utah State.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And so it was like my second year of college. I started having like problems in class. Like I couldn't, like I'd be listening to the professor, and it's like, I can't understand anything you're saying. And I've always thought myself to be like a very intelligent person, you know, like salutatorian in high school. I was on a full ride. Like I felt, but I couldn't sit through a lecture. Like I'd have to go to the bathroom. I'd have to take a snack, or if there were classes where you weren't allowed to have like your phone or a laptop out, you just had to have a notebook. Like it was really, really hard for me. And I didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden I'm waking up just like, man, I don't want to do anything. And I, just no motivation. I started to like crave isolation. Like I had my best friend since junior high. We did everything together, and we lived together at college. And I started to feel like, man, I just got to get away from everybody. I just need to go be alone. I need to move into somewhere that no one knows me. And I didn't know at the time that I was just craving the chance to let the pose down. I was just craving a chance to just be me.
Yeah.
And
do you feel like you're an empath too, and like you would kind of take on everybody's energy, and so then you'd just be like so drained?
So when I hear someone say that they're an empath, kind of what I hear is that as a child, they were incentivized to be extremely perceptive, right? So like a very inconsistent parent, or lots of volatility. And so their survival was to be like 2 steps ahead of mom. So like, oh, I think mom's starting to feel frustrated, and I change my behavior. Right?
Yeah.
And so they like grow up and they're like, I think I'm an empath. I can feel everyone's feelings. It's like, and you're traumatized.
Yeah.
So I think so, more in a sense of like, how can I know what you need before you do, so I can meet all your needs so that you'll like me, right? How can I like adjust my pose to
Me as I'm adjusting my pose.
for it to work, right? And so I finally I reached out to a counselor because the school had free counseling, and
Oh wow, I feel like that's a big move.
yeah, I was just like, something's not right.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what it could possibly be. I'm like, I have tons of friends. I do really well at school. My family loves me. Like, I have a good job. I exercise. I eat well. Like, there's no reason for me to be feeling like this or even struggling. Right. And so I'm like, something must be terribly wrong. Like, I need help. And so I reached out to a counselor, and some of the main things I remember from that is, in one of our first sessions, she was like, life satisfaction, 1 to 10, go. And I'm like, 2. And she's like, tell me about the 2. And I'm like, it's like, honestly, when I go to bed most nights, I just kind of want to never wake up. I'm just tired, you know? And I can't remember if it was, like the second or third session. She's like, well, what are the things you love to do? And that was such like a bizarre question to me. I'm like, what? Nothing? I don't know. Because I could think all the things I do and that I do well, but I don't know if I really like any of those things. And so almost out of spite, one time in response to her question, I was like, because just feeling frustrated, I'm like, you want to know what I want to do? What I want to do is go to the library where no one will find me and do homework for 6 hours and not talk to a single person. That's what I want to do. That's my hobby. There you go.
This is just so shocking to me, like knowing you and how like kind and loving and bubbly you are. Like that's wild. But it just shows that we really have no idea what's going on in someone's head, you know?
Yeah. And she, like, so grateful for this moment. She was like, so why don't you? And I'm like, are you dumb? Did you hear what I just said? I can't do that. Like, there's so many expectations of me. I can't be alone in the library. Like, I'll have to study with friends. They're going to wonder where I'm at. Like, excuse. And she was like, I'm just going to invite you to try to do that. And so I did. And as you might imagine, it was cocaine. I felt so good just being alone, just doing my homework. And I started to do it regularly. And I remember one of our last sessions was, she asked about life satisfaction, and I was like, maybe like a 6 or a 7. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's like such a big deal, And that's something, and maybe we come back to it later, but just like that's so profound that she helped me, she oriented me back to myself and helped me overcome all my excuses for not listening. Yeah. And magically, the self knew exactly what it needed, right? And we could argue till we're blue in the face that that's not healthy. You shouldn't go be alone. If you're depressed, you should be. That's not what I needed, right? I needed to be alone. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the beginning of that pattern of like, maybe I know what I need. Maybe I just need to listen. Huh.
And did you feel like you thought that at that point?
No, I think it was like barely forming.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I still continued to struggle pretty bad.
Did you still go to her?
The thing is, I realized I kind of had this, I was struggling so much to stay focused in classes and get homework done. And COVID was kind of starting to hit. And I just was like, if I don't finish my degree soon, I'm not going to make it.
Were you going to school for the same thing?
I was going to school my degree was in economics.
Oh, so really?
So I was planning on going to law school.
Okay. Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I just said, if I don't wrap this thing up, I'm not going to make it. I just felt myself just... And so I busted my butt, graduated in 3 years, got done. And as soon, I think even before, like a few weeks before I graduated, I moved out to Vineyard where I didn't know anybody and I just wanted to be alone. Yeah. It was like that. I'm going to indulge that part of me that's wanted to be alone and rebrand. And here's just kind of a funny side story. My whole life, I've like loved cowboys. Like ever since I was a little boy, I loved cowboys. And so on the drive from Logan to Vineyard, I stopped at an IFA and I spent like $200 on like the jeans and the t-shirts and the hats. And when I got to Vineyard, that's what I wore. And no one knew that was like me living my dream.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I had a Ford F-150 and I wore these Ariat boots and I just dressed like a cowboy and I drove a motorcycle and it was just like, these guys don't know.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so fun. Yeah. You just gotta like restart.
Yeah, like a fresh start.
And that was probably good for you with like your mental health, just like honoring your true self a little bit in that way.
Yeah, I think it helped. I think I was starting to like, again, listen to myself or listen to the things that I wanted. But I got down to Vineyard. I've always been super ashamed of being skinny. So I started going to the gym a lot. I had a big boy job because I graduated. And so I had a lot more money. So I was eating a lot more food. And so I started to put on a lot of weight. I put on like 30 pounds in my first 5 months in Vineyard.
Wow.
And so I've got this motorcycle. I'm being the cowboy. I'm finally ripped. I'm making money. And I was getting worse and worse every day. And it finally...
Did you ever like tell your family about how you were feeling, or like friends, or...
No. Yeah. It seems so bizarre looking back.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot to just like carry every day.
Right. And have you ever seen the movie What About Bob? Mm-hmm. So at the very end, or not even at the very end, like Dr. Leo Marvin like goes so insane that he like snaps and he has to go in like a wheelchair.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen to me. I felt like my brain was going to break. And one night in the Vasa parking lot after my workout, I called my dad and I was just like, Dad, something is not right. Like I'm not safe. Like somebody's going to get hurt. I feel like my brain's about to break.
Oh, my heart. Yeah.
And at the time, I think he kind of said like, and this just kind of goes to like how we view mental health in our world. He's like, yeah, like how do you plan on affording that? And I don't think he meant it the way it sounded. Yeah. And I just said like, hey Dad, cause I have a brother that broke a femur like 2 years before. And I was like, Dad, when Taylor broke his femur, did you ask him that question? And he's like, no. And I said, why? And he's like, because it was an emergency. I'm like, Dad, this is an emergency.
Wow. That's really like mature of you to say that.
Thanks. I think I was desperate. I needed someone to like see me. Yeah. And like take care of me. Yeah. You know? So he's like, all right, we'll get you. And I said like, Dad, I don't feel like I have the energy to book an appointment. I don't have the energy to look or to call a number. I need you to help me. I need you to take the reins. Yeah. And so, and that was probably like a very, very low point.
Oh, this just makes me so sad, you know? Yeah. Ugh. This isn't the time that I met you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is when you met Nate Wardy. Or whatever I was. Yeah. And so,
and I would have never guessed in a million years.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I got into a psychiatrist, and
did he schedule that for you, or
he did? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Super grateful.
So was your family, did they talk about like emotions growing up, anything of that sort really, or like had anyone in your family really gone to therapy like that you knew? Okay.
No. I think my dad had started, and I think like that's one of the best gifts anyone's ever given me is just like my parents going to therapy. Yeah. So parents out there, go to therapy. Yes. Your kids will be grateful. And you know, he prescribed me something, and he's like, you should go see a therapist. And he gave me a list. And one of the big things in my mind at the time was like dating, right? And I'd always really struggled with dating in the sense that I was so good at it until the second, like it became something. And then I would like compulsively exit. Like I was like, I gotta get out of here. Yeah. And so, you know, the last girl I dated up at Utah State, we broke up and got back together probably 5 times. Yeah. And every time we'd get together, I'd start to lose sleep, lose weight, get stressed, lose focus. And so I'd be like, I don't know what's happening. I just know it's something to do with you, and I can't do this. Yeah. And so we'd break up, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh my gosh, I totally love you and want to be with you. Why did I ever break up with you? That was weird. And then we'd get back together, and immediately I'm like, oh, I can't do this, right? Yeah. It's just this pattern. And as I look back, it started back in junior high, right? Wow. Just getting close and then finding some reason to get away. So that's kind of at the time I was like, this is my presenting concern. I need help with this. So I go to this.
Because we don't realize that it's so much deeper than that, right, you know? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, you're a player. Yeah. Or you have commitment issues.
Because I totally experienced that too. Before I went to therapy, I would just be like, yeah, I would just bounce, you know? Or I would be like overly codependent. It was like one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. But, a little disorganized.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is hilarious. So I go to this therapist and I tell her what I'm struggling with dating. I'm like, I get in these relationships, I get really overwhelmed. And she goes, Nate, everything you're saying is kind of pointing me towards one thing. I'm like, okay. And she's like, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, sure. She's like, do you think you're heterosexual? I'm like, I didn't doubt it till now. Did I just get diagnosed with gay? Like, I didn't know. I was like, what? I had never even crossed my mind. But she's the pro. Yeah. I'm paying her, you know? And I just remember being like, I do think I'm heterosexual. Am I wrong? I'm dead. It was shocking. It was shocking. And
not that there would be any problem if you were, but like that's so crazy that she would say that to you.
Straight
especially
first session.
So vulnerable. I feel like when I'm in my most vulnerable state, if I go to someone that I respect, anything they say to me is like scripture. Right. Yes. You know?
Because they're in that power position.
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
So I'm like, and then my homework was, she goes, do you smile every day? I'm like, I do. And she's like, do you sing every day? I'm like, I maybe do. I don't know. And she goes, do you sing I'm a child of God every day? And I'm like, definitely I don't. Definitely I don't. And she goes, I want you to start, but not the second verse because it gets a little murky. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm gay and I should sing I'm a child of God every night. Like, this is all very, very new for me. So I leave that more confused than I went in. And
I'm just shocked.
Yeah.
Truly shocked.
You and me both, sister. I was like, whoa. And I tell my dad how it went. He's like, oh, that's not good, obviously. And he goes,
you're like, Dad, I'm gay.
Like,
and I need to start singing I'm a
child
of God, but not the second verse, okay?
Not the second verse, right? I'm like, I need to go read the second verse. Like, what was she talking about? Like,
what do you think she was talking about?
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm sure it's not trauma informed. I don't know. And so anyways, my dad's like, I heard of this therapist on a podcast. I think he's in Utah. Maybe reach out. And so I reach out. And I talked to him and he's like, I'm going to shoot you straight. My wait list is 5 months long.
Who is this?
This is Steven.
Oh, okay.
This is Steven, yeah. My wait list is 5 months long. But I have a cancellation list. And anytime someone cancels, I send the email out to anyone on the cancellation list and first one to dibs it gets it. And I'm like, put me on that list. And so to make a long story short, changed my life. He was an incredible therapist, used some experiential therapy, some psychodrama, and yeah, I mean, I could cry just thinking about the shift I had. And some of the key moments I remember is he was kind of helping me confront my own perfectionism, right? Which is very easy to do. You know, you say to anybody, you know, tell me about what you're doing. And, oh, well, I'm trying to be perfect all the time. And it's, well, do you believe that's possible? Well, no. Well, then why are you trying? Because I have to. You
make some reels about this, like the conversations. And I always love the reels because I'm like, that's so accurate. Everybody, please go follow him.
Thank you. And I just remember one time he's like, so Nate, let's say, as a therapist, I throw a pillow at you in the middle of the session, right in the face. Am I a good therapist or a bad therapist? I'm like, terrible therapist. You kidding me? You're not supposed to do that, man. I'm like, bad therapist. He's like, okay. So what if I throw pillows at only one client out of every 10? So 9 sessions I don't, 1 session I do. And I'm like, still bad. Like, no one's doing that, man. If you're throwing pillows at your clients, still bad. And he just says, so I have to be perfect to be good. And I just remember I like froze. And that was like a huge moment where I realized that my level of goodness for people, places, activities, hobbies, relationships was perfection.
I feel like I relate to that right now.
Yeah. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just
impossible. Like I feel like when you're saying this, like the thought that comes to my mind, especially when I was going through like my intense therapy and stuff, I just constantly felt like I was swim and I was trying to swim to the top, but I could not get a fresh breath of air, like I could not get there. Yeah. And yeah, it's just because I was just expecting like everything to be perfect, even though it's not, but you just don't make that connection in your brain. Yeah. And that's why I think therapy is so cool, because you go in and they just tell you things that are so simple and it just clicks and you're like, how did I not know this my entire life? Yeah. It's like a cheat code for life, yes.
Yeah, we just don't spend a lot of time in our head or we do in kind of this negative way, but we don't spend a lot of time like bringing awareness to our thoughts. Because, in a session, you can confront and say, do you believe perfectionism is attainable? And being like, no, right? But then why are you living like it is, right? Yeah. There's all this gap between what you believe and how you behave. And he would frequently say things to me like, if I said, well, I'm scared to not be perfect, he would say questions to me like, what would you need to not be scared? Right? Always sending me back to myself. And sometimes I get frustrated. I'd be like, what am I paying you for, dude? Answer my dang questions, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And one night that was also pivotal in my growth was, I just one night was feeling totally overwhelmed, because what happens in therapy, and we don't talk about this often, is it's like spring cleaning. And you think, okay, spring cleaning, the kitchen is going to get cleaner. What you don't know is that you start spring cleaning, in an hour, the kitchen is going to look like a nightmare.
Yes, totally.
And so you start taking all of these parts of your life that were in some semblance of order, and you start to introduce chaos to it. And so it's like, I don't know who I am. I don't know who God is. I don't know if I'm doing what I do because I'm ashamed and I'm afraid, or because it's authentic. I don't know anything. Right. And so I just one night just feeling totally lost, like the whole house was in spring cleaning mode. Like I had gotten excited and perfectionistic about therapy and started spring cleaning every room in the house. And then all of a sudden I'm like, there's nowhere to lay down. There's nowhere to sit. There's nowhere to do anything. And just in my room. And I thought, I just kind of almost heard like Stephen's voice in my head. And it was like, what would you need to hear from God to just be okay? What would you need to hear? And I just said, I would need to hear that there's just nothing to worry about or improve. And that just like struck me like lightning. And I was like, there's nothing to worry about or improve.
Wow. Yeah. I just got the chills. Yeah. That's cool.
And I thought, surely this will be temporary.
Again,
like I'm
that's
healing.
So cool. Cause that answer came from you, Right.
Yeah. And I still hold to that today. Which we can talk about, because that's a very shocking and alarming thing. People are like, well, you got to be worrying. You got to be improving. What, you're just going to be like this for the rest of your life? And I have a whole lot of thoughts around that. But letting go of that was allowing myself to be okay as I am. Not suspending my joy and my peace and my happiness for tomorrow when I'm better, but just allowing myself to have it now. And ironically, having it now helps me get there.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Wait, so are you still wanting to go to law school at this point?
Yeah. So I was studying for the LSAT. I was signed up for the LSAT. And then this is like right around when I graduated, the weekend of the LSAT, I got super, super sick. And because COVID and everything, you couldn't go to a testing center if you had a cough or something like that. And so I missed it. $200 I'll never get back.
That's right. Oh, dang it. If you guys can donate, his memo is.
Yes. And so I thought I would just work my big boy job until law school and take the LSAT and then apply to law school for next year. And through this process, I just had a day where I was like, I think I want to be a therapist, And so
it's a big change.
Big change. Yeah. But again, it was one night in my bed sitting thinking, and then having the thought, hey, could you see yourself as a therapist?
Wait, at this point, were you more open with people about your mental health, or?
Yeah, I started talking it's like, for anyone who's done therapy, it's like this exciting time where you're like, Mom, guess what? Do you know why I compulsively tell jokes whenever it gets awkward? It's because I'm trying to make people like me,
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like this crazy.
All these mind-blowing things one after another. Yeah.
So I'm like sharing, and at the time I had started talking to my now wife, Becca, and the thing is, I was so far from being healed from my attachment issues, but I had been given the gift of the ability to be aware and the ability to have enough self-love to voice it to people. And so I'd say things like, I struggle with closeness and I want to date you. I want to be with you. And that feels strong sometimes, and other times I can't feel it at all. And like, what do you need from me? Like, how can we make this work? Because I don't see that changing this week or this month.
This is huge. That is so, so big. Especially, I mean, that's hard to hear, but that's so big for them because then you're able to like work through that instead of like these confusing feelings constantly.
Yeah. 100%. And dating can be confusing.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're all trying to get super close to each other when we don't know who we are. And so it's like, I don't know who I am. You don't know who you are. Let's try to get close to each other. Like, what a bizarre proposition. Like, it's impossible.
I'm just like, yeah. Right? Wow.
I saw a quote on Instagram the other day and it said something like, if you don't bring up your childhood trauma, your dating life will, or your romantic relationships will.
Absolutely. And I think Matt Townsend, I'm sure you know who he is.
Yes.
He said your twin flame is your biggest trigger or something like that. And I was just like, absolutely. Yeah. Even with friends sometimes, I'm just like, it's like, or dating, yeah, just brings up everything.
Brings it all right up.
And then you think something's wrong. You're like, we're not supposed to be together. Like, why are we fighting? You must be gay. He is gay. And it's so interesting how that works.
Right. And so like, and I think one of the reasons Becca and I worked out is because she walked that walk with me. And
had she done like therapy before?
Yeah, she had been to therapy more as like a teenager, and that's her story. But so she was familiar with therapy to some degree, and so, you know, I would say things like, "Why don't you leave me? Like, I have days I don't even want to be dating. Like, how is that not just so discouraging that you leave?" And she would always say, "Because I see how hard you're trying."
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
What a gem.
She's a saint. Yes. She truly is.
She's amazing. And so
you meet her and you're just like, there is not a bad bone in your body. Like, she is just light. Anyways.
Yeah. And the thing is I had started to realize that I made most of my choices either because I was scared or I was ashamed, which you think not, because like, oh, very happy guy doing great things. And so I started to do this thing that I still do today. And I would have a thought. And instead of thinking the thought was me, I would assign the thought to a voice in my head, a part of me. So I'd go, okay, shame or trauma or fear, I hear you. Like, what's your message? And the message is, you should break up. You should get out of here. This is not going to end well. You're just going to hurt people, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then I'd say something like, okay, compassion, what do you hear? Well, or compassion, what do you have to say? Well, you've stuck this relationship out longer than you have others in the past, and that's great. Gratitude, what do you have to say? I'm just so grateful that Becca's being so patient. Awesome. Courage, what do you have to say? I can do this for one more day.
Everything you say, I'm just like in awe, jaw on the floor.
And it was connecting to other parts of me that never got the mic.
Okay, I have a question. Yeah. And we can cut this out if you don't feel comfortable answering this. Yeah. But did you have like a traumatic childhood, or did you feel like you had a pretty safe childhood that like you just maybe weren't heard all the time? Like,
yeah, I think
I think a lot of people think I only need to go to therapy or do this work if I've had a crazy traumatic childhood, you know?
Yeah. And that can be super confusing, and people go, you know, I can't be broken. I've had a great life. And,
my parents love me.
Right. And 100%. Like I didn't have any huge, major traumatic experiences.
This is so good to hear. I feel like this is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can make up stories all day long about how things are supposed to be. You had a great childhood, you should be fine. And you had a bad childhood, you should be really struggling. But at the end of the day, we're all very, very unique people. And the truth is what the truth is. And reality is what reality is. And so you can kick and scream all day that you hate yourself, that you're anxious, that you struggle with relationships, and say, well, my childhood is perfect, so none of this should be here. Well, it's here. And it didn't happen for no reason. Something happened that you perceived a certain way, and it's in your backpack, man. So either we take it out of the backpack.
A little applause for that. Wow. Okay.
You know, and so, I mean, I think my parents were super committed to the family, and they loved us, and they weren't perfect, and they'll say as much. And I think in many ways, a product of their generation and things that was best knowledge at the time, you know, make your kids conform. There's not a lot of curiosity in parenting oftentimes. And so children are forced to be this, fit in this box. And it's hard to be a kid and not hear, be different than you are.
Yeah.
Be better. Right. And so, to answer your question, I don't think there was any major, what we would call big T traumas, but a lot of little T trauma. So with Becca, ended up getting married, but like one of the gifts I'm committed to giving the world is realness. I cried the entire way to my wedding, the whole way. I was terrified, just 100% terrified.
Wow.
And the only reason I got through is I would check in and ask myself, who's talking? And it was always shame or fear. And I had just decided, if it's one of them, I'm done listening. I'm done. You've ruined my life. You almost killed me. I'm not doing this. If it's not compassion, if it's not gratitude, if it's not courage, I'm not listening. And that just helped me. It helped me get through some really hard times, because you think, if you want to know how to not listen to your trauma, does it sound like fear? That's your trauma. Does it sound like shame? That's your trauma. Does it sound like a bully? That's your trauma. It's not God, and it's not good. Don't go. And if you think otherwise, play it out. Listen to the voice and come back later and tell us how it's going. It's not going to go well, right? And so just learning to start to separate myself from all my thoughts and choose good ones and stop listening to the negative ones was
that
key.
Is so powerful.
Yeah.
I'm going to start implementing that.
Yeah. And so anyways, we got married. And ever since then, here's the thing. I think the moment you can fire your therapist and start to take the journey is as soon as you learn to quit turning on yourself. If you can stop being mean to yourself, if you can listen to yourself, life will never be worse than an emotion, right? Someone dies and you're grieving, and that's okay. Someone, cut you off in traffic and you're mad, and that's okay, right? But nothing is worse than when someone dies and you go, this is my fault. You turn on yourself. I didn't do enough. I should have done this. I should have done that. Or someone cuts you off and you go, I'm having such a terrible day. I'm the worst, or they're the worst. You start to project your shame onto them, right? As soon as you can stop shaming self and others, the journey is a lot better. You can do it. You could probably do it without a therapist. And that's why, now as a life coach, I graduate clients not when everything's perfect. I graduate them when they're done beating themselves up, because then they just have to keep going.
This is a really important point, and this is one of my favorite things to talk about, but I think it is so important. Why is it making me cry? To have a therapist that wants you out of their office. I feel like I have so many friends that are like, I've been in therapy for 10 years. And you're just like for me, that I don't know how I got so blessed, but because every blade of grass is tilted in my favor. But I went to a therapist who gave me homework. She made me meditate. She made me pay for part of my therapy so that I would be more instead it was fully my insurance. You know what I mean? She made me invest in myself and read all these books. And the integration is when I learned the most. Yeah. It wasn't when I was sitting in the therapy, in her office. I learned a lot there, but it was so much when I would practice these things outside of therapy. And so when someone tells me they've been to talk therapy or in therapy for 10 years with the same therapist, I'm just like, oh, that's your friend. I don't know how much, I don't know. Like it pains me because I know they could be so much farther along.
And it's an expensive friend.
Oh, a very expensive friend. Yes.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think, like your therapist probably can't take you further than they've gone. And in my experience with therapists, a lot of them are chasing healing for themselves in a very intellectual way. And it makes them uncomfortable when things need to go in not an intellectual direction, right? They need to go in an emotional direction. And so having a therapist that's like, I have looked into the eyes of all my demons. I have lined up the skeletons out of my closet. I have gone down the darkest caves I could possibly imagine. And I can sit with you while you do the same. So let's not waste time here. Let's not cope and get you, to calm back down. Let's poke that fire until it explodes and we figure out what this is all about, And I truly think therapy doesn't have to take years and years and years and years, right? Where there's fire, there's smoke. Instead of learning how to cope with the smoke, let's go put out the fire, right? And I will walk with you to your fire, but I sure as hell ain't putting it out. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And you're going to do that. So when we walk away with steam in the background, you're going to be like, I know how to put out fires. And guess what? I just lost my job. Send a Christmas card and tell your friends, have a good life. We're done, right? Because
I just want to bow down right now. I'm like, oh my God. Wow.
And it sounds like you had a great therapist that did that for you.
Yeah, totally. Like I remember she was like, well, we're done here. And she wouldn't tell me a ton about her life and it kind of bugged me. But I wasn't attached to her because she didn't share a ton of information with me. I was attached to her, like, especially because like I have a mother wound. And so like, she was a woman that could be my mother, know? And then she's like, well, you can't come here anymore. I'm like, okay, bye. But I felt in my soul, like I knew my time had come to an end with her. Like in like the sense that I had progressed so much that like I could be my own therapist, be my own guru. Like I had it within me because I learned to trust myself.
Yeah. I had a client fire me recently and it was just so beautiful. Like, getting yelled at work. And he's like, no, whatever this is, I don't do that. So I've got a 2 weeks right here if this is how you're going to treat me, right? And then connects with himself and realizes he's always wanted to have a van. He went and bought a van. He's going to start to renovate it to do his own thing. And I asked him how the vaping is going. And he goes, I think I vape a little less, but I don't beat myself up when I do. And I'm like, brother, I think you're good. Like, you love yourself. You're committed to the little guy there. You're committed to the inner child. You're committed to being treated well and not blaming others when they don't treat you well, just taking accountability to leave, right? Not spinning your tires. And I really think therapy ends when you just be nice to yourself. You learn how to give the mic to compassion, give the mic to understanding, and stop giving it so much to shame and fear. And it's funny because, today looking back, I'll be doing something and say I spill a drink or something. The first voice in my mind is one of these nice voices.
Wow.
So I hear like, LOL, that's hilarious, And that's when like this is paid off.
Yeah.
My brain I've heard it said once, your brain becomes user friendly. Like someone could plug into your brain and it would be kind and it would be nice.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I feel like in many ways my brain is user friendly. Like yesterday I had a day that most people would probably say is a bad day. My brain felt sad. It felt like I didn't really want to be around people. I didn't feel a lot of things. And guess what? Brains do that sometimes. Oh, there's my voice of understanding. And guess what? Not every day's like that. Oh, there's my voice of gratitude. And it's okay to be not totally perfect all the time. Oh, there's my compassion, right? And so it doesn't need to be a bad day. It's just a different day, right? And if the people in your life can be okay with that, well, we got no problems here, right? Smooth sailing. And if they're not, go.
Yeah.
And get different friends.
Yeah.
And so one thing that Becca and I do in our marriage is I'll say, hey, I'm just feeling off today. And I'll say, like, is it okay for me to be off today? And she'll go, it's okay to be off today. Not that I need permission, and I could see that being toxic in certain relationships, right? But it's just this, it's good to hear.
Yeah.
Someone say, hey, I don't need you to be perfect.
Yeah.
If you're not smiling, I'm cool. I'm not taking it personal. Have your day, brother. I'll have mine. And it's like, oh, I can be loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to have emotions. So anyways, that's my story.
And I feel like so much of it too is just like being able to communicate that and being with safe people that will respect you communicating that with them. I would love to know like different, I guess, phrases that you change in your brain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
To like help you be more positive and maybe more connected with yourself, because I know that you like let compassion speak and you know, like those kinds of things. I'm just wondering if there's like certain things, because I know some people change, like instead of saying I love you but I love you and, you know, like switching but with and, or like are there any little phrases you feel like that help your clients or help you so much in your life just by making those little shifts?
I don't know if I have good phrases, but I do have good shifts.
Okay.
So one of them is, so often we're either kind of exploding in emotion, which we could call our child, or we're telling ourselves all the things we should be doing, which we could call that our parent, right? So people come into my office and I can hear them bounce between the two. I just really love her, but like, I just know I shouldn't be here. And I like, know I should stick up for myself, but it's so scary to stick up for myself. But I know I really should, because I should, you know, it's just, we're back and we're forth, all the feelings. And it's like having, if a child walked into this room and started playing with the pillows and the mics, and we had a really strict parent, the parent would go, stop that. And that'd make the child get louder and the parent gets louder. And next thing you know, we're spiraling.
Yes.
Right?
This is something that happens for me a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can definitely relate.
Yeah. So we get in this cycle, this spinning cycle of all my feelings, but I can't allow any of my feelings because there's always a good rule to make sure I don't. And so we're just stuck in the spiral. So the way to get out of the spiral is to introduce the adult. And the adult is just truth and facts. So the child is feelings and emotions, life as you want it to be, life as it feels. The parent is the shoulds and the rules, life as it should be. The adult is just facts and truth, life as it is. So, for example, say you're having a really bad day, right? Drama with a boyfriend, right? You're just feeling anxious and down. You're feeling all this sadness, you're feeling all this anxiety, but then your parent comes in and goes, you're the vulnerability is cool girl, get it together.
Literally, right? Yes.
And so then the adult would come in and say, fact, I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Fact, lots of people feel that way. Fact, everybody feels that way. Fact, telling myself I'm the vulnerability is cool lady doesn't help. Fact, being compassionate does help. So just getting into this place of facts.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good point. Just like figuring out what are the facts in this situation, because I feel like with my OCD, like, and I'll just spiral, and I'm definitely not thinking about any facts, at all.
Yeah, it's the good old thing that Jesus said, right? The truth will set you free. And it's like, come back to the facts. Let's be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
So another example is one time I had a client, and for the first call, his parents were there because his parents wanted him to get help. And they go, are you going to tell him about the thing you did? And he's like, no. And I immediately go, I don't need to know the thing you did. He's clearly uncomfortable. I don't need to know. And later when they left and I had a one-on-one with him, I just said, hey, I want you to know whatever it was that you did, I bet it makes perfect sense if someone just knew what was going on, right?
Right in front of his parents.
Yeah, well, they had left.
Oh, okay.
They had left, right? And because we live in a world where things add up, you don't have level 10 depression from level 1 trauma, right? You don't have level 10 OCD from level 2 trauma. Things add up. You think you're broken? Well, what are the facts, right? The fact is you're behaving in a way that you call broken, right? You're obsessing right now. Well, the fact is something happened to make you obsess. You're not the one exception to nature where you're just broken because you're broken and it doesn't make any sense and no one will ever understand. No, let's come back to the facts. And that client had driven a car into a building at 100 miles an hour. And when I got to know him, it made perfect sense why he did that. His life was terrible. The prison he built with his mind, the negative thoughts, the shame and the fear had him like a slave. It was a terrible way to live.
And it's so cool that you've been there in your mind so that you could really, really understand him too.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, never thought that would be a blessing, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so that's a huge mindset shift. Get into the facts. What's the truth, right? The facts about my bad day yesterday were people have bad days. That's all in it. Let go, right? And if you need to feel something, well, that's a fact. You're feeling anxious. So what do you need to do? You need to shake it out.
Yeah.
You need to talk to somebody. You need to, right? Like what needs to happen? And I think just making depression and mental health and anxiety, like let's bring it down to earth. You're anxious. Okay. You're afraid. What are you afraid of? Where is it? It's not here. Okay. Must be here. What's it there? And boom, boom, boom. You start to line it all up and oh my gosh, it makes sense. Right? Crazy. All along it made sense. I was behaving the way in my college classes for a reason. Relationships were hard for a reason. And that's just a huge mindset shift, I think.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. These are like such good pointers. I feel like for someone that maybe has already been to therapy like me or even someone that's like just interested. But I also want you to tell us just a little bit about Accepted Life and the way that you guys work and how it's different from a regular like therapy office.
Yeah. So at Accepted, basically we're a partnership.
And where is it at again?
It's in Sandy.
Okay.
So, you know, like the big soccer stadium, we're just like right next to it.
Okay, cool.
So Accepted is like a partnership of life coaches and therapists, mainly that do experiential trauma processing, experiential therapy, as opposed to just regular talk therapy. And
so what does that entail? Like EMDR or like
So it would essentially be making intangible things tangible, right? So you've talked about OCD a few times, right? So maybe we'd say, okay, this Dutch Bros water represents your OCD. Now I'd have you switch and have you be the OCD and let's talk to Jenna. You OCD, talk to Jenna. Wow. And OCD might say things that surprise you, right? Maybe OCD says, I own you. And then when you reverse back into you, you're like, oh my gosh, I hate you. Like, why are we together? Right? So making the intangible tangible, in my experience, it just makes it faster. Right? Yeah. So in talk therapy, it's like, hey, Jenna, like, tell me what it's like for you to drink water and what's water like when you hold it in your hand versus me being like, take a sip, Jenna. Any questions? Right? Like it's just clear. It's fast. We're to the point. And a lot of times clients that, haven't done a lot of therapy need a lot of help to get to the point where they can do experiential because it is fast and we are going to get to it. And so all your all your subconscious things to actually keep yourself in wounded and in unhealthy and in unhappy, like it's going to come up, you know, it's going to get real.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. We do a lot of one-on-one coaching. Twice a year, we run a trauma intensive out in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be like 8 hours of therapy, 5 days in a row. And we break it up with like surf lessons and fun things like that. Go out to eat every lunch and dinner, super nice places. It's like very abundance. You sleep in a great place. That's something that I would say if you've done therapy, or even if you haven't, and you're looking for something big, it's like a year worth of therapy in a week. You know, it's like, oh, maybe everything doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's just worked for so many that
totally.
I'm like, just be done with this. You've been depressed for so long. Give us 6 months.
So, okay, I've just another question here. But so with OCD, like I've just heard that you like need to go to an OCD specialist. And so I'd be curious what you know about that, if you know anything like in relation to going to somewhere like this, maybe if there's like an OCD specialist, or you feel like, because with OCD you have to do like exposure therapy, like from my knowledge of it so far. And so
Yeah, exposure therapy is one of the more researched methods of addressing OCD, but it's a modality. It's a technique, right? Just like experiential therapy or psychodrama would be a technique. Now, another toxic trait of mine is maybe being partially dismissive of all these different names of things. Oftentimes, when we get down to brass tacks, it's one of a couple things, right? And it almost always is you were put in a situation where you were extremely overwhelmed, you were extremely afraid, you were extremely powerless and helpless, and you believed something about it, you took it away, you trapped an emotion, and it's manifesting as OCD, or it's manifesting as depression, or it's manifesting as this. Mm-hmm. And so what psychodrama and experiential therapy does is we kind of recreate scenes. And as you start to walk through it and give voices to all the parts, that emotion that the subconscious buried starts to float up and it starts to get big. And then having someone there to help you just get it out, just express. And then you express it. It's the fastest thing I've ever had to just an overnight change. Once that's out of your body and we rewrite the belief, it's like changing the past. It's like things went differently than they did. And so whether it's OCD or a variety of other things, it could even be health things. You know, when I met Becca, she would take a handful of pills with every meal, like enzymes, probiotics, magnesium, just all these things. And she started working with somebody that accepted, and she doesn't take anything now because a lot of our gut issues are related to anxiety and things like that. And if we can just get to the root and get it out of your body, you know, a lot of things can be healed, whether it's OCD or gut issues or migraines or it's just one of those things where it all adds up. You make sense. Your head hurts. You get migraines for a reason.
Yeah.
Something is happening, right? Your hands shake for a reason. The foot is bouncing for a reason, you know? And if we can make your brain user friendly, you can be kind enough to start to look at it.
Wow.
And then find some answers.
My mind is just blown. Every single thing that you say, I'm just like, wow.
Thank you.
You have so much
Didn't know
knowledge.
I was so mind-blowing.
And I know I already said this, but I feel like so much of this stems because you really understand it because you went through it, which I think is so powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love what you guys are doing. It's so cool. And I'm so happy that you're there, you know?
Yeah. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited for, we've only been around for like 2 years. And so we're just going upward and upward, just building and doing more. And it's been really fun.
Cool. Well, do they have like an Instagram account?
Yeah, they have an Instagram account at accepted.life.
Okay. I'll add that in like the footnotes and stuff.
We
And then
post
your
mainly
Instagram.
memes.
Okay.
We're still
I love
figuring
it.
out how to say this into the public.
You guys need a podcast, honestly.
I know, right? We do. Working on it.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, one of my favorite questions to ask everybody is if you could have everybody in the world understand one thing, what would it be?
Yeah. I would say you are not bad. It's impossible. And any of the variations of bad, broken, deficient, not enough. So many of our problems stem from the moment we decided there was something wrong with this. I'll tell you what, birds don't do that. The trees don't do that. The bird just thinks it's a bird and it just does bird things.
Wow.
Right? We are just who we are. And Jenna does Jenna things. And Nate does Nate things. There's nothing wrong with Nate. There's nothing wrong with Jenna. And so many of the problems that we're afraid will happen if we stop worrying are the very things that stop happening when we just be ourselves. Right? And so that would be my thing.
Wow. So profound.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I am so grateful.
It has been an honor to be here and also to watch you do this since being Nate Wardy, guys, because you're sharing your healing with people. And if there's one thing I've learned about how things add up, people don't get to where you've gone without being really hurt. and feeling a lot of pain. And you share all the bright moments, and no one gets to see just all the dark, dark, dark nights where you feel alone and confused, and that's the price you pay. And so while you shine like your beautiful light, just know that you're seen for someone who's been through a lot, and just thank you for turning that into this.
Wow. Thank you. I feel so seen. Yeah, there are a lot of dark nights, you know, there still are. And like, I feel like as I've been going through my journey, like, it's almost like when you're in this position, like I feel like God or the universe or whatever it is gives me another thing to be like, no, you need to relate more to your people, you know, like let's work through this so you can help other people work through it. I'm sure you totally relate to that. Like, and sometimes I'm like, damn, I don't know. This one was a little too hard for me. You know, like, no, let's rethink.
I was okay not knowing what that's like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, no, I can just like try to empathize with them. You know, I don't need to experience it. Yeah. So thank you. That really, really, really means a lot.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Well, we're definitely going to have you on. I'm going to force you to come back on because I'm just like you. Yeah. Well, if anybody has any topics they want him to go over, let me know because we're going to bring you back on.
Perfect. I'll be happy to come back.
Okay, cool. And do you think the best way for people to find you is your Instagram? Probably.
Yeah, just my Instagram. That's perfect.
Cool. We will add you.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So when we were coming to record this episode, my producer Abby was like, hey, Jenna, like someone's in my clubhouse. That's where we record. And she's like, I don't think we're going to be able to go. Like I went and talked to her and she's like working. And yeah, I just don't think we can go in there. But then Abby went and talked to her again and convinced her to let us come film in here. You didn't know all this, did you?
No, I saw her working over there.
Okay, you saw her working. She's just sitting here during our whole episode. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, but then I was like, honestly, if there's any podcast you should listen to, it's one with a therapist. Oh, this will be nice, you know, this will be beneficial. But she just left this note and she said, because she walked out, I needed to hear this today. Thank you. That's so cute. Oh, my heart. That makes me so happy.
That's sweet. Yeah.
And we'll end on that note. Beautiful.
Bye.
Amen.
Amen.